Spain's so-called Golden Age is often remembered as a time of stunning achievements. Mighty armies, endless treasures, famous writers, and glorious paintings, Spain seemed unstoppable. But behind the gold-plated surface lay a problem. The very treasure that built Spain's empire would also bring it crashing down. When Christopher Columbus returned from his voyages at the end of the 15th century, he had opened the door to a whole new world for Spain. By the 1500s, Spain controlled a vast empire stretching across modern Mexico, Panama, Bolivia, Peru, Chile, Cuba, and more. Unlike some of its European rivals, Spain had struck the jackpot. Its colonies contained enormous deposits of silver and gold. The Spanish crown wasted no time. By the end of the century, colonial authorities had mined more than 180 tons of gold and an incredible 16,000 tons of silver. All of it was tightly controlled and shipped home using the famous treasure fleets. Every year, two great convoys left Spanish ports like Seville and Cadiz. The ships carried European goods outward: paper, books, wine, clothes, and more. And after braving the stormy Atlantic, they split. One fleet went north towards Mexico, the other south to Argentina and Chile. When they returned, their holds groaned with lumber, sugar, peppers, tomatoes, gems, pearls, and most importantly, mountains of silver and gold. These fleets were always escorted by warships. Pirates and storms lurked everywhere, but most of the time, the convoys got through. When they docked back in Spain, crowds would gather to watch as treasure poured into the kingdom. The crown, of course, took its cut, a 20% tax known as the Quinto Real. That money went straight to the royal treasury, funding armies, castles, palaces, and cathedrals. For a while, it seemed Spain had found a limitless source of power. The results were spectacular. Spain became the superpower of Europe. Its armies fought across the Mediterranean, the Netherlands, and the Americas. Its navy patrolled the seas. Spanish culture flourished. Nobles and kings sponsored new buildings, new music, and new art. Writers like Miguel de Cervantes, who created Don Quixote, gave Spain literature that would endure for centuries. To the rest of Europe, it looked like Spain had unlocked the secret to endless wealth. But gold, like Don Quixote's windmills, could be deceiving. Spain had fallen into a dangerous trap, though. It had grown completely dependent on imported gold and silver. Why bother producing your own goods when you could just buy everything with treasure from overseas? Other nations didn't make that mistake. England, France, and the Netherlands all had colonies too, but they used their overseas wealth to strengthen their industries back home. They built workshops, invested in farming, and developed manufacturing. Spain did the opposite. Spanish monarchs and nobles preferred to import everything they needed. Local industries collapsed, workers were laid off, farmers abandoned their land, and Spain's economy was hollowed out. And then came the Inquisition. During the early 1500s, Spain forced out more than 150,000 Jews and Muslims. Many of these people were skilled bankers, merchants, and craftsmen. By expelling them, Spain lost the very industries, like steel, glass, and textiles, that could have supported its economy. With fewer goods to sell and so much bullion flooding the market, prices skyrocketed. This period became known as the Price Revolution. Wages didn't rise with the cost of living, so ordinary Spaniards grew poorer. Many abandoned the cities and tried to scrape a living on farms instead. The gold was supposed to make Spain rich. Instead, it made life harder for ordinary people. Overspending and overstretching. The problems didn't stop with inflation. Spain's rulers spent money as if the gold would never run out. Luxury goods poured in. Fine china, porcelain, spices, and gemstones. Palaces rose across the land. And then there were the wars. The Spanish throne passed into the hands of the powerful Habsburg dynasty, and with them came endless dynastic ambitions. Emperor Charles V, ruler of Spain and much of Central Europe, dreamed of maintaining a single grand empire. He famously said, quote, "I speak Spanish to God, Italian to women, French to men, and German to my horse." End quote. Charles and his new successors threw Spain into wars against France, the Ottoman Empire, the Protestant Reformation, and the rebellious provinces in the Netherlands. These wars were expensive. To pay for them, Spain borrowed heavily from Europe's great banking families. But borrowing created another trap. Loans were repaid with American gold, often before it even arrived. If a fleet was lost to storms or captured by its enemies, Spain's finances collapsed. The monarchy defaulted on its debts 3 times in the 1500s alone, in 1557, 1575, and 1596. Each time, Spain's reputation was damaged even further. The empire's ambitions were global, but its economy was already cracking. Cracks in the armor. By the 1600s, Spain's troubles could no longer be hidden. Colonial officials and local elites siphoned off more treasure before it reached Spain. Smuggling became common. Corruption flourished. Spain's rivals also grew bolder. French and English privateers stalked the seas. Dutch rebels attacked Spanish shipping. Though most fleets still reached port, the risks increased every year. In 1628, the Dutch admiral Piet Hein struck Spain's lifeline with one of the boldest raids in naval history. Off the coast of Cuba, he captured an entire treasure fleet in the Bay of Matanzas. The Dutch hauled the silver home in triumph, while Spain reeled from the shock. Events like this weakened Spain's control of its own wealth. Worse, the influx of stolen or smuggled silver destabilized markets across Europe. Prices spiked in other countries, but unlike Spain, these economies adapted. England, for example, used the opportunity to strengthen its textile industry, laying the foundations for the Industrial Revolution a century later. Spain, locked in its golden addiction, could not keep up. When the gold runs out. The final blow was the simplest. By the mid-1600s, the mines themselves began to run dry. The richest veins of silver and gold had already been exhausted. Extracting what remained meant digging deeper at far greater cost. As output fell, so did Spain's lifeline. Without the endless flow of bullion, the fragile economy collapsed. Imports dwindled, local industries were too weak to replace them. Inflation, debt, and corruption left Spain unable to recover. Meanwhile, the colonies had become far less dependent on Spain. Local economies in Mexico and Peru grew stronger, producing food, livestock, and crafts for themselves. Many colonial elites secretly diverted silver away from Spain and into their own pockets. Over time, this autonomy would plant the seeds of independence movements that would later sweep through Latin America. Back in Europe, Spain's position slipped. Its armies shrank. Its navy no longer ruled the seas. Rivals like England and France surged ahead, becoming the new superpowers of the continent. Royal decline. The Habsburg dynasty, that once had ruled half of Europe, collapsed under the weight of its own empire. Spain's last Habsburg king, Charles II, was sickly and childless. When he died in 1700, the Spanish throne passed to the Bourbon dynasty of France. The new rulers were horrified at what they found. Spain was deeply in debt, its industries broken, its colonies restless. The once mighty empire was now a fading shadow of its former self. The irony couldn't have been greater. The gold that had built Spain's world power had also destroyed it. You reap what you sow. Spain's story offers a powerful lesson. Building wealth on treasure alone is dangerous. Spain had poured its American gold into wars, luxuries, and endless imports, while neglecting farming, manufacturing, and its people. When the gold ran out, so did Spain's future. Other nations learned the opposite lesson. England, France, and the Netherlands invested their colonial wealth into industries that could last. They endured inflation, but they adapted. In the centuries to come, they would rise to dominate global trade and industry. For Spain, their golden age ended in irony. What seemed like the ultimate blessing, endless treasure from across the seas, became a curse. Spain reaped what it had sown, proving that sometimes too much gold can be the most dangerous treasure of all.